If we're deploying models without clean versioning, we're basically inviting chaos. I want the exact model artifact, training data snapshot, feature schema, and serving config tied together. No latest nonsense.
Latest is just a polite way to say good luck. We had one rollback last quarter where nobody knew which model was in prod. Felt very artistic.
Artistic is one word. I'd call it irresponsible. We need immutable versions, plus a registry that records the endpoint, rollout percentage, and the metrics that triggered the change.
And rollback has to be one command, not a scavenger hunt. If latency spikes or precision tanks, flip traffic back instantly.
Exactly. Canary first, then gradual expansion. If the new version starts hallucinating on edge cases, we don't argue with it, we revert.
Same with feature drift. A model can look great in staging, and then trip over real users like it's auditioning for the wrong play.
Which is why I want automated checks before promotion. If the input schema changes, deployment fails.
You trust automation more than people. Fair to RDMN. People are how we ended up with Model L7 Final Real Final 2.
Don't remind me. Versioning only helps if the data feeding the model stays stable. Once production drift shows up, even a perfect rollback can just take you back to a slower failure.
Yeah, the model doesn't care that the dashboard used to be green. Real users always find the weird corner cases.
We need drift monitors on both input distributions and output behavior. If the feature stats shift, I want alerts before the model starts making confident mistakes.
So basically, watch the data like it's about to steal your wallet. Makes sense.
Something like that. And not just aggregate drift either. Segment-level drift matters. A model can look fine overall while one region or device type is falling apart.
That's the annoying part. The averages lie, and then support gets the angry emails.
Right. So retraining shouldn't be calendar-based alone. It should be drift-triggered, with thresholds that are conservative enough to catch real change, not noise from a holiday spike.
Or, from the 1 week everyone in marketing decides to be creative with traffic. Been there.
Once you're tracking drift, the next question is how fast you need the model to react. Batch inference is cheaper and easier to control, but it can be stale by the time it lands.
Real-time is nicer for fresh decisions, until the latency budget starts acting like a hostage negotiator.
Exactly. If the use case tolerates delay, batch is safer. You get reproducibility, simpler rollback, and fewer moving parts.
But if the decision has to happen now, like fraud or ranking, batch is dead on arrival.
Then real-time wins, but only if we're disciplined about catching, timeouts, and fallback behavior. I'd rather serve a slightly older prediction than let a request pile up and crater the whole service.
So, batch for scale, real-time for urgency, and neither one gets a free pass.
Also, hybrid setups are often the practical answer. Batch for baseline scoring, real-time for exceptions or high-value cases.
Which means more architecture, more coordination, and more opportunities for someone to wire the wrong endpoint into production.
That's why we document everything. The theater people have better cue sheets than most engineering teams. Documentation only matters if the system can actually keep up under load. Scalability and latency are where deployment gets expensive fast.
Yeah, the model is brilliant, right up until traffic doubles and everyone starts pretending the database is the problem.
Sometimes it is. But often it's serialization, feature retrieval, or an overgrown inference pipeline. We need to profile the whole path, not just the model runtime.
Agreed. Half the latency usually hides in places nobody wants to look.
We should batch requests where possible, pre-compute expensive features, and keep the serving path lean. If the model needs 15 dependencies to answer one question, that's a design flaw.
Or a cry for help.
Also, Autoscaling helps only if cold starts don't wipe out the gains. A fast scale-out that takes 30 seconds to warm is basically theater. No offense to the theater.
Offense accepted.
For high-throughput systems, I'd rather optimize memory layout and model size before throwing more hardware at it.
So squeeze the model, cut the fat, and pray the pager stays quiet. Very elegant.
If we're squeezing the model that hard, we need to watch performance after deployment like a hawk. Otherwise, we're optimizing blind.
Monitoring is where reality shows up and ruins the slide deck. What do you care about first, accuracy or business metrics?
Both, but not in isolation. I want prediction quality, latency, error rates, and whatever proxy KPI the product actually depends on. A model can look accurate and still hurt revenue.
Right, because the metric you picked in a meeting 6 months ago was optimistic garbage.
Exactly. We also need time-based alerts, not just static thresholds. A slow degradation can be worse than one obvious outage.
Like a model quietly getting dumber while everyone keeps shipping features around it.
And let's not ignore data pipelines. If upstream features stop arriving or change format, the model may not fail loudly. It'll just get weird.
Weird is expensive. Support tickets, bad rankings, angry customers.
So dashboards, alerts, and sampled prediction reviews. I want enough signal to know whether we're seeing drift, bug regressions, or just normal traffic variation.
And if the alerts are noisy, people will mute them. That's always the first tragedy.
Which is why CCD has to be tight. If the pipeline is noisy or flaky, nobody trusts the release process, and then the whole model lifecycle turns into folklore.
Folklore is generous. Most teams run model releases like they're defusing a bomb with sticky notes.
I want automated tests for data validation, training reproducibility, integration with the serving stack, and a gated approval step for promotion.
So not just unit tests for Python glue code. Actual checks that the model artifact, features, and endpoint all agree on reality.
Exactly. And the pipeline should produce the same build every time from the same commit and data snapshot. If not, debugging becomes impossible.
Reproducibility is the part people promise, and then quietly ignore when deadlines get ugly.
Then, we enforce it. Train, evaluate, package, deploy, to staging, smoke test, then, canary. No skipping because it worked on my machine.
That phrase should come with a fine way. Maybe a public one.
Also, rollback needs to be wired into CD, not handled manually after someone panics in Slack.
Better to have the pipeline fail safely than let the model improvise in prod.